Modern sales systems, often seen as just something to get the job done, but implement them effectively and you will find that your team stays accountable, reduce manual work, and gain back your valuable time. Now, especially in today's age when there's a plethora of different softwares to choose from, the trap here is having all of these disjointed systems and no one place to keep track of it all. Now, I've worked with 50 plus businesses, from real estate to brokers to dentists, construction, you name it. And there comes a point in time in a business's life where things just start falling through the cracks. Opportunities get missed. The team doesn't even remember when was the last time they spoke to a prospect, and they start to realize that more opportunities could have been closed if only a simple follow-up was done. So in this video, I'll be showcasing a sales automation build I did for an imaginary tutoring business. And keeping in mind here that the beautiful thing about automations is that it's not really a one-size-fits-all. Each business is unique and there are infinite possibilities when approaching automations. My goal of this video is to simply inspire you to begin thinking about your own processes, to get some ideas on how it potentially may get done, and helping you stay on top of your team's progress, their tasks, and ultimately just simply helping them succeed. When thinking about how to further optimize your current processes, I will break things up into 4 stages. The first one is identifying key touch points. Second will be linking up your existing tech stack. Thirdly, synchronizing key data. And fourth would be critical actions. So for this particular example, we're going to be looking at, like I mentioned before, a tutoring business, and we'll be going to be focusing predominantly on the sales process here. So step 1, identifying key touch points. What we'll be looking at here is what are the important milestones throughout the process that the sales team would need to check off in order for them to successfully convert a lead into a paying customer, or essentially just identifying them as an opportunity for another time, or completely just disqualifying the lead altogether. What I've pinpointed here is 7 key stages. We've got new lead, consultation booked, proposal sent, negotiation, payment, and of course, close won or close lost. Now, what's important to actually outline this is we oftentimes get too engrossed in the finer details of how our business is being run. And without taking a bird's eye view, you tend to overcomplicate things rather quickly. Now, in this point in time in your business, it's understood that your team members, your teammates, your staff probably already know what they're doing. What we're trying to do here is help them to stay on top of what stage they're essentially in right now, reporting it back upwards, so then the powers that be or management can help them to push along these deals more effectively. Talking about the first stage here, new lead. Now this can come in a plethora of different ways. The first one could be a simple form on the website. It could be a meeting link. It could be Facebook ads. It could be community posts where someone just outreaches via DM and say, hey, I'm interested in your service, let's talk about it, and you send them a particular link. All of these different ways that a prospect can reach out to the business should be accounted for in this first stage here, and then marked accordingly. So then moving forward, you can then look back on your previous quarter and said, hey, this particular avenue has been the most successful. Let's maybe double down on that, and this one maybe is not really working. Let's try to phase it out because it's costing us X, for example. So getting an idea of how that works and accounting for all of your different touch points and ways that the customer finds you is quite important. Now, next, consultation booked is the next stage that I have pinpointed here. This is where a one-to-one interaction with the sales team actually takes place. This is where we start to decide and qualify the prospect on a much deeper level, and at the same time extracting the information from them to help us get a better idea on who thinks that we're a right fit versus who we actually want to work with. Okay, now proposal sent, pretty self-explanatory. Here is after the consultation has been done, we have decided that it is a qualified lead or not a qualified lead. In this case, obviously, it is a qualified lead. We'll then prepare the proposal and then send it off. And usually, typically in this time, aside from the standard, remind them to sign the document in 3 days, every 3 days, that usually comes by default, it's typically not enough, right? You kind of want a more human touch. You want to prompt your sales team to say certain things at certain times, send additional information, supporting documents, things of that nature. So this stage is where all of those things happen. Now for the negotiation stage, that's where we go into, as the name suggests, more into deeper detail. Maybe you're tweaking the agreement a little bit, maybe you're fine-tuning the package offering that you currently have to then further customize it to your prospect's needs. Now next up is payment. This is where you obtain critical information about financials that you would require to then facilitate further improvements to your pricing and packages. And once that's done, complete and close loss. Now each of these stages think about it as a parking slot. So whenever a deal is in this particular stage, it goes through a series of automations to then make sure that that particular deal is nurtured correctly. All of the activities and tasks takes place by that particular person, so then you can successfully move on to the next stage. And the goal here is quite straightforward, right? It comes in through new lead. We want to make sure that it moves from left to right and ends up either in complete or close lost. Simple as that. Now next stage is linking up. So in this point in time, especially these days, like I mentioned before, there are tons of systems out there. Each of them kind of do its own thing. It serves its own purpose. It's good and bad, but what I've realized is that there is a system that actually handles all of those things. Now, not many people know about this, especially with SMEs, businesses maybe under $1 million a year. It's an extremely powerful tool. So before I get into that, there are tools such as DocuSign, for example, that handles, your documents and your agreements. You've got Easy Debit for your payments, perhaps. You've got JotForm for forms, collecting customer information. You've got things like Calendly to book in your meetings and facilitate, virtual meetings and stuff like that. But again, many people don't really know this, but there is a software called Hubspot, which is a CRM or a customer relationship management tool that houses all of these things and enables businesses to just simply focus onto one place. And that one place is the source of truth. And you don't have to, what did this guy say? And what information did we capture when they first came to us? Okay, let's open up JotForm. What does the agreement actually say? Let's go to DocuSign and actually change that. When did he actually book in the initial agreement? Let's go dig through Calendly and find when it was done. Like, all these things can actually be linked up into one software, and that's where HubSpot comes into play. Now, these are just some examples. There are tons more, but anything that you do, most probably HubSpot has the ability to integrate with those different softwares and allows you to reflect or sync the information that you captured from these softwares into one central location. Now, once that's done and you've identified all these different tools and systems that comes into play, the next step here is actually synchronizing these key data points. Let me give you an example. Your marketing efforts, perhaps you go through Meta, right? You do paid ads as one typically does. What information are you capturing here? What form fields are you actually capturing? How is it being captured? Where is it being stored? What is the form that you're going to be using? Are you redirecting them to a landing page, or are you doing the Meta pop-up form? Now, once that form has been completed, where is the data being saved? This is an Excel spreadsheet. Well, Excel spreadsheets are static, right? You can't really do much with that unless you send it somewhere else so you can play around with the outcome of all of these inquiries that come through. Now, you could use something like JotForm. That's a very popular one. What exactly are you capturing here? Are you capturing, again, basic contact information? But in this particular case, we have, for example, in the tutoring business, we'll have what year level are you in? Because perhaps you want to unqualify, or not unqualify, but you want to nurture anyone who is in the year level 9 and below. You want to pick up on year 10s and 11s and 12s. Those are your key hot leads, for example. And then anyone who is over that, you just want to say, sorry, this is not for you. Now, ensuring that all of your customer information and the types of information you're collecting from your prospect is synchronized with all other inbound methods. I've seen in so many cases that businesses capture certain types of information from Facebook, but then when it comes to their contact us form, it's completely different. And then later on in their Calendly is completely different. And then in their webinar sign up is completely different. And then what you have is a complete mess of your system where you don't know the complete picture of everyone in your system, right? You've got, for example, you've got 2,000 contacts. 50% of the what year level you're in is missing. And then another 200 students or 200 inquiries that come through, their postal code is not known or their phone number is missing. What are you going to do with that, right? It's completely messy. So you need to synchronize and make sure across all of your platforms you capture the basics of what your business essentially needs to make an informed decision, to do marketing, to do retargeting, whatever it may be. Another key thing that is very underlooked as well is their interests, right? Why did they even come in and find your business in the first place? What was it that intrigued them about your business in order for them to take the time to fill out the form and to get you to contact them in the first place? I've seen many businesses just omit that entirely. So then when you call them, then you gotta ask it, and then you update your spreadsheet or you update your CRM if they even do that at that point. So capturing it up front is pretty handy. Not to say that your form should be ginormous, it shouldn't be, but the basics to help you make a good decision even if the person is unqualified or doesn't pick up the phone call. Now, same thing here as well, right? Interaction information, all of the meetings, the calls, the tasks, the phone call follow-ups, all the emails, all those things should be captured in your system. So then you'll be able to, I guess, score this particular prospect in terms of how engaged are they with your business. Because I don't know about you, but if this particular contact reaches out, they seem keen at first, but they have an open deal, or they haven't really nothing has really come into fruition with this particular person for over 3 to 6 months. And your typical life cycle stage for your prospect is 2 weeks, for example. It's a simple enough product to convert in 2 weeks, but this contact has been reaching out for you guys for the past 5 to 6 months. That is honestly a time waster, right? I mean, yes, you want to kind of eventually, hopefully close them off, but in this point in time, they're an annoyance to your team, and it's actually taking up more time to engage with this person, this undecided person, rather than focusing on other prospects that could convert in the time frame, which is 2 weeks. So capturing all that information is pretty useful. And then for this time waster, then put them into a nurturing sequence. Give them certain marketing information and knowledge-based articles that will help them make an informed decision before then reaching out again in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever. Now, the next thing here is capturing information, for example, DocuSign. If your company requires a final agreement to be signed off on, throughout the sales process, you want to be capturing that information into one place. And then once it's ready into that, proposal stage or that document stage, you'll then be able to then in one click take all the information that you've already captured during the discovery process and the meeting process and putting it into DocuSign. And all your sales rep needs to do is just finalize, look through it, and just make sure the spelling is correct, for example, and then send it off. What financial information do you require? Let's just say for this tutoring business, payment method, right? Payment method is one thing. Payment frequency, for example, are you paying per month? Are you paying per term? Are you paying a bulk? Are you paying in bulk? Capturing all this information is, well, I would say quite important, because again, in the next financial year, you can look back and say, hey, honestly, no one's paying a month, no one's paying yearly. Why is that? And maybe it's a wise business decision to actually, you might want to have a huge stack of cash up front. So you want to try to rejig your package and pricing structure so then more people are inclined to go yearly rather than weekly, for example, because that's obviously not ideal. So capturing this information in one system to help you guys make better decisions down the line is quite important. Tracking your accounts, your how much this deal actually costs you guys or is bringing into the business, all this is very important information to capture. Now again, if it's all over the place, it's hard for you guys to make the decision, but if it's in one place like HubSpot, that will be ideal. Moving on to the fourth and final step, I would say, is identifying critical actions. Okay, now I won't go into too much detail because later on in the next step I'll show you the completed build, but in this stage this is where you kind of identify who in the team is responsible for that particular deal at that stage, and it's in their best interest to get it out of there as soon as possible, essentially. So let's just say it comes through as a new lead. The sales lead needs to be notified immediately. Okay, so that's the person responsible there. He will then identify who is going to be the meeting host, who is going to be responsible for the first touch point, and actually getting them to, and actually talking to the prospect about the packages, the pricing, introducing yourselves, things like that. So the consultation will be the meeting host who's responsible. And then once that's done, perhaps an administration person takes over and prepares the document and writes the email and goes back and forth negotiating and determining what the next steps are. And in negotiation, it reverts back to the sales team. It reverts back to the sales lead, for example, where he'll then do a deeper dive, has the authority to give out discounts, to do whatever he needs to do to close the deal off. Next, payment, chasing up payments, making sure it's been paid, checking the accounts, going into zero, for example. That could be an admin person again. Before going into complete, where admin would then send them the welcome email, or honestly, you could automate it as well, but the admin is essentially the person overseeing the step. And then last but not least, if it goes over to close loss, we'll then tell marketing that this has happened, so that this lead closed loss, capturing the reason why it lost, so then it'll help them to re-inform their marketing decisions moving forward. Okay, so those are the 4 main steps. Now, I'm going to show you guys what I've built out for this example tutoring business. Right here is the completed sales process. And you can see it's honestly quite simple once you take the time to sit down, identify those key stages like we talked about before. Don't overcomplicate it, because again, at this point in time, you need to trust your team, right? You need to trust your team, but you want to help them succeed. So you don't have to go into too much granular detail of talk to this particular person, do this action, drag the file from this software to this software, update this line. You don't really have to do that, okay? But I mean, you could if you wanted to. But the whole idea here is to just identify the most critical actions for the business in order for them to move the deal along the sales process and get to a ultimate decision. Alright, so let's go into the details here. When a prospect comes through, we're going to have, like I mentioned before, various different ways where a prospect can actually find and get in touch with your business. So once they come through, we're actually going to use a website. We're going to use a Hubspot form embedded on the website. So Hubspot essentially has a tool where you can build out a form feature and then take an embed code and place it wherever you want in the body of your website, or it could be a share link which you can then embed into like a button to then open up on a browser or something. So that's the first step there. Then once that's been done, we will send the notification to the sales leader saying that, hey, a new lead has been assigned to you or it has come through. Here are the information that pertains to that deal. So it gives them a quick overview of what's going on. And then it will automatically create a deal, associate that to the contact. So you'll be able to identify that this deal has this contact, where it came from, what you're asking about, and give an alert to the sales team to reassign, for example. We'll have a task then for the sales lead or anybody else in the team by round robin or random assign to then, hey, reach out to the contact and just introduce yourselves. What we can then do here is also send off an automated email with some basic high-level information about the company, a link to a freebie, for example, and a call to action at the bottom of the email saying, hey, book a time with us to chat. We'll love to meet you, for example. Now, once that's done, 2 things can happen. On that phone call, it could be a successful conversion where they'll book in a meeting straight away. If that's the case, great, good job. We'll move the deal from new lead into consultation booked. But if not, the other way that the deal can move to this stage automatically is that if within that particular automated email, someone clicks a particular action, takes them to the page, they successfully book it in, the automation would then pick up on the fact that this same contact came through as a lead at first, but then went ahead and done that particular website booking form. Let's automatically move the deal across to consultation booked. Now, once that's done, we'll then send another freebie, for example, or a video or a VSL or a video sales letter or something like that to further qualify them or further give free value. We'll then create a deal once this is done, or find an existing deal if it already exists. We'll then assign it to the team, notify the sales lead that a meeting has been successfully booked, so then he can prepare and maybe perhaps check everyone's calendar, confirm that particular date and time works for that person, and reassign that lead to the best person for this inquiry that has come through. Next, if a meeting has been booked already, we'll then capture that date, because again, you know, in a year's time, you could say, hey, what months of the year was peak meetings, right? You can see maybe it's cyclical, maybe your business is cyclical, maybe it's a construction, or maybe it's, you know, you have periods where there's a boom in customer demand for your particular product or service in that time of month. capturing this information would give you an idea of when people started thinking about it versus when they actually need it, right? And then what we can do here is basically a delay. The morning of that free assessment meeting date, send a reminder with a checklist of to-do items or resources for that particular host to do their job more effectively. What we can then do afterwards is also, if a meeting outcome is known, so we'll have a task that says, okay, your meeting is done, record down what was the outcome. Was it a no-show? Was it completed? And just some notes about what has happened. If, for example, the meeting outcome is no-show, we'll then send it over to remarketing or notify the sales leader that this particular deal was a no-show. Potentially we could mark them as a time waster or something like that. And if it's known, well, what was the outcome? Was it successful? Was it not successful? What notes and what was being said in that particular meeting? Now, once that's done, we can move the deal over to a proposal send stage. Now, this proposal send stage could be, again, a plethora of different things, but in this particular case, there's an onboarding email that gets sent out, right? That contains a link to another form that says, all right, thanks for being interested. Let us know about these information, your student name, what year level they're in again, what subjects you're interested in, for example, when would you like to start, any historical tutors that you have been engaged with, if you want to disclose that information, just information that you guys need. Perhaps the latest test scores, so you can have a better understanding of where the student essentially is and what their knowledge is, okay, for example. And then we'll just wait, right? If it's not been submitted in 3 days or the proposal hasn't been signed in 3 days, we'll just keep having tasks to follow up until we hit a certain point where, okay, keep trying for about 3 weeks. And if after 3 weeks nothing has been done, proposal still hasn't been set, numerous calls has been made, we'll then move it to close lost and mark it as unresponsive or whatever it may be. And negotiation is quite straightforward. In this particular stage, we want things to be a bit more manual, right? Even though I'm in automations and I do this for a living, I still feel like there are certain steps or stages within the process that needs to have a human level connection, right? You still need to follow up. You still need to write personalized emails. You still need to do things above and beyond for your prospect in order for them to actually move across the line. So you don't have to automate everything, but as you notice, it was simple things that helps the team to stay on top of and keep track of what they need to do just to get the job done. And then here in payment, we'll then, once the deal has been moved to the payment section, we'll have a reminder for perhaps admin to then prepare the payment link and send it off. We'll include notes about what the meeting was about, what adjustments or amendments needs to be done to the agreement to make the prospect happy. And then capturing the key financial information that we talked about before, the mode of payment, selected package, payment frequency, all that sorts of things. Move to complete, well then that we could essentially trigger off a notification to the onboarding team, for example, to say, hey, let's prepare the class materials for this particular student. Their start date is this, the sign-off date is this, the student's year level is this, the package they're interested is blah, and then let's start preparing, because in 2 weeks time, the student is going to come for their first session. Make sure you have all the materials that you need. And last but not least, close loss. Very simple. Identify what was being done, what sorts of attempts, how long this contact was in touch with the business for, and what was the final outcome, and if they need to be remarketed to with a different offer or not, right? And that can just be sent to the marketing team for a remarketing campaign, for example. Now, okay, we've gone through a lot. All right, and hopefully that gives you guys a better understanding of what can be accomplished here in HubSpot or just automations in general. Now what we're going to be doing is go through the high-level steps of what we actually did to create all of these things inside of HubSpot. Now jumping into HubSpot here, let's actually take a look at how it's actually done and how it looks like. Right, so you can see here in HubSpot we've got a page view here. The UI is pretty simple. It's simply broken up into 3 parts. On the left hand side here we've got all of the information and properties, or the data points that we've captured throughout the process. In the center module here we'll see overview and activities. This is essentially a historical view of all of the activities that has happened with this contact: calls, conversations, any integrations, custom events, notes, tasks, everything will be handled right here in the middle. And on the right hand side is all of the associated objects, right? So things like any other contacts. So if this was the parent, for example, this could be, you can also have an associated with the student, because then ultimately once the deal has been signed off, you don't really want to, well, you could, but you might want to be marketing or giving updates to the student instead of the parent. So this is where you can identify who's who. Companies, if it pertains to you, but in this case, not really. Deals, so this is the open deals. Any tickets, concerns from the parents, you can lodge it in tickets. And then any attachments like PDFs, files that you want to send across or the parents send to you will be stored right over here. So you can see here that we've got a couple of properties that we can capture: contact owner, the contact type, the phone number, mobile phone number, student's name, year level, postal code, messages, and how do you hear about us. All of these things can be captured. And then as the deal is being progressed through the pipeline, you then capture different sets of information, right? You could first of all also import or copy across basic information, but there could be a difference between what was captured in the contact as an inquiry, as an inbound inquiry, and what has been captured afterwards, because prospects or customers tend to think they know what they want, but at the end of the day, the job of consultants or salespeople is to really help the prospect to really identify what they truly need, right? And this could be different, and then that disparity or that change over time could then be captured and reported on. Then we could better identify, maybe perhaps in the marketing messages, talking points or clarification points that needs to take place in order for the business to help customers better understand what they need up front before even talking to a sales rep. We can also then capture all the financial details we talked about before: payment frequency, for example, mode of payment, what package they are after, all of those things, and then the task would be then prepared here in the center. Now for a simple sales process like we discussed before, well, we can see here already we've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 10-ish workflows that secretly works in the background like little tiny elves to help you guys to do the things that you guys need to do: remind your team, create tasks, reminders, notifications, things like that. And I'll show you guys this one fascinating workflow. All right, so here's an example of the workflow that happens in the background, right? When a Calendly has been booked, we'll then reformat some data points, because you then realize across different softwares, the internal value or the data is actually a bit weird. Like it's been the format is all messed up, so we need to reformat it to a figure that actually makes sense for us, right? Like for example, if you use a particular software from the States, it might be month, day, year. Like who looks at it that way? So let's basically reformat it to be day, month, and year. Okay, things like that. We can even send off WhatsApp notifications. Right, we send a WhatsApp notification to a particular number, or in this case, the sales rep, to then say, hey, you've got a new lead, do something about it. We'll then delay for a little while just to give time for the systems to think, find the contact, and depending on where they actually came from, if they came from your website, which is the contact us form, go down this path. If they came from Calendly, go down this path, and there's different actions for each of them, right? You need to do different things. You need to update certain properties. You want your database to then reflect the customer journey thus far accurately. All right, so if it goes down this way, mark it as came from the website. If they came to this way, mark it as coming from X, Y, and Z. We'll then update the deals and to do certain things, create associations, and all that jazz. Now in other news, if you want to check out other case studies of how I help businesses automate a certain aspect of their business processes, go and head down to the description below or click right over here and check out my video of how I created a automated certificate process which saved a business over 5 hours of manual work every single day. So check that out down below or click the link right over here, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much. Take care.